Alright, hello and welcome everyone. My name is Eben, and today we're going to go into part 2 of our auto drawing practice sort of mindfulness art techniques video here. And in the last part we put together a sketch after doing some auto drawing, and if you missed that video you can check it out. I'll throw up the link on the screen here. So during this video we're going to take this sketch that we kind of produced a little more organically, and we're going to talk about how we can carry those same methods and strategies into the painting process. Now if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe to the video. That will help me out quite a bit with the algorithm and everything, and also you won't miss new videos that come out every Wednesday, as well as the live streams I do every Sunday, which are quite a lot of fun. So alright, let's just dive in right here and start painting in this. So I'm going to create a new layer here, and then the first thing that's really good to just sort of start out with is we're just going to sort of fill up that white space in the canvas. And I like to fill it up with a gradient, and that sort of helps me get an idea for what this atmosphere is going to sort of look like here. It doesn't have to be anything specific, and kind of the fun part about painting is you can just sort of create whatever you want and make it however you want. So that's what I'm going to do here, and I think I'm even gonna push my colors a little bit more, and we're gonna see what kind of cool world we can make out of this sketch here. Alright, so the next thing is we're just gonna start mapping in our major shapes, and the key here is to to not get too involved in sort of how you want this to play out. I mean, we already have a sketch here, and maybe you like the sketch, maybe you don't. It doesn't. It's really not that important. What's really important is we're focusing on the process here, and we're letting this piece sort of unfold in its own way. So I'm just sort of going in and trying out a few different brushes, and we're gonna sort of, just sort of paint what we want to paint here. And I know it sounds kind of obvious, but sometimes you can sort of forget about what it is that you actually want to create when you're sort of wrapped up in this process of creating something that's noteworthy or interesting, or something that you think will get more attention from other artists, or from people that follow you online, or whatever it is. But really you're not gonna end up creating anything that's really of value if you're not enjoying the process yourself. So one thing I like to do is just sort of work with these long kind of flowy lines here, and I'm just starting to introduce a little bit of color variety, and I'm using my mixer brush, which I've created a few different preset mixer brushes in my brush pack here, which you can find in the description link. And I've sort of set them up so you can really kind of start to closely approximate the sort of more traditional kind of painterly feel that you would get from using oil paints, and which is sort of what I'm used to. So that's kind of what makes it easier for me, and it's also just really fun to kind of watch these pixels get pushed around on your canvas as if it's a paintbrush. So that's pretty cool. So I'm just gonna keep putting color down. I'm gonna keep adding some variety here, and maybe we can, as you're going through this process, just sort of pay attention to what you're naturally drawn to. Don't feel like you have to finish or develop one particular area. If you find yourself sort of drawn somewhere else, go to that area. Just sort of pay attention to what interests you about the painting, and maybe what you're seeing, kind of develop in one area versus another. For example, I've created a lot of kind of random swirly things up here, but I think they do have the potential to become this nice kind of cloud halo around this what looks like a tower in the distance here. So that looks like just something that I would have a lot of fun creating, because if you know anything about me, I love to paint clouds. and I can get really lost in it for a while. So, you know, before starting anything else, I'm just kind of jumping into this, and that doesn't mean I'm going to get too detailed about it at this point, but I do want to sort of, you know, I just want to follow what my inclinations are and really do what I enjoy. And as you develop one part of your painting, you know, you'll start to see where other parts can sort of complement and build on that. So I'm actually going to fade out our sketch just a little bit so we can sort of start to see what we're painting here, but I'm not going to paint over it quite yet, because I want to keep myself flexible here. I don't want to sort of confine myself to the sketch I created earlier, even though I really like it. I just want to kind of allow some new ideas to flow in and some new opportunities to happen here. And ultimately, sometimes you will find an idea or some way that you can improve your piece that maybe you didn't think of initially, and you want to leave yourself a little bit of breathing room to explore that, and to kind of be able to explore that without feeling like you're risking anything. And me personally, I prefer to keep this all in one layer, you know, my painting that is. And you know, for sometimes as I go on, I'll create 2 or 3 for a foreground or midground or that kind of thing. But for the most part, I just like to keep it simple, and I find that keeping things to one layer is really you know, important for sort of maintaining this mindset of being engaged with your painting and not really overthinking about it, and sort of keeping your process simple. And you know, simplicity is really it's an easy thing to strive after, but sometimes it's not obvious how you can sort of incorporate more simplistic practices into your painting, and this is really one of them for me, is being able to kind of keep my layers simple, keep my painting process simple. I'm not really messing around with multiple brushes at this point. I'm just really getting to know this one, and maybe at some point later I'll start to think that this painting is getting a bit too monotonous in terms of its brush strokes or that kind of quality, but at this point I'm not really concerned about that. I'm just sort of fleshing out this interesting world here that I've sort of put together, and it's always good to introduce some more color variety, you know, just a little bit subtly here and there. Keep pushing your slider around from reds to grays to, you can even push it into the violet a little bit, you know, just injecting some interest and some color here. I think I'm probably at the point where I'll feel comfortable painting over my sketch, so I'm just gonna copy and paste these and merge them together. I'll probably keep the sketch layer underneath just in case I want to reference it later, but I almost never do. It's just you know, I guess if it's something that comforts you, or you know, it can be a really useful thing to look back on and to sort of remind yourself of what your original intent was with this piece. And in this case, I just really didn't have an original intent. The whole thing kind of evolved a bit organically, so I'm not really concerned about preserving that. And that's just sort of a general principle I try to maintain, is just having some trust in myself and my process. And this is something, no matter what your skill level is, you can cultivate this trust for your process, just you know, through various I don't know, you can call it high risk, I guess, you know, things like painting on one layer or not saving backups, but you know, it's really about the process. And you know, you should get used to painting things every day that aren't going to make it into the portfolio, or aren't going to make it onto the Instagram feed or whatever it is. You know, these are just, it's just the process. This is for you, and this is for your development and your enjoyment. So it looks like there's some kind of tower out in the distance here. So let's check that out, because that seems like kind of a cool place to go. And you know, that's something you can. It's a great way to think about things like this. Like, where would you want to be? if you were to go to a place, what would you want that place to look like? And when you're there, or while you're there, what would happen? You know, what are some places you would explore or discover along the way? If you look at this big blank spot here, or you know, over here, what are just some things, you know, just sort of sit here and look at it. Take some time to imagine it, and really kind of sink into the story here. Put yourself in this place. What are you smelling? What are you hearing? You know, put on some, if there's one thing I do sometimes, you just put on some nature sounds or something if you're making a landscape or anything that sort of inspires what it is you're creating. Maybe it's not a landscape, maybe it's sort of like an industrial cityscape or something. If that's, you know, where you find yourself drawn to, keep pushing your mind and your imagination, and trying to really envision yourself exploring this space. Of course, as I'm working, you know, I'm drawing on a lot of painting techniques that I'm already, you know, very familiar with. You know, everyone's going to create something different depending upon who they are and what their skill level is and how much experience with painting they have, and that's totally fine. And if your painting ends up looking very different than mine, of course, I hope it does. You know, everyone has their own creative voice, and that's kind of the point, is what draws one person to the painting process is different from what draws another person there. And you're going to find yourself in a different place depending upon who you are. You're going to find yourself exploring different areas in your canvas and sort of coming up with new ideas about what you find there. And anytime you find yourself sort of, you know, getting caught up in maybe some thoughts about what you're doing here, or maybe you're kind of feeling frustrated or irritated, or you know, anything that comes up for you, just like with the auto drawing, just kind of return to, you know, every stroke you're making. Just sort of, you know, really hyper focus in on what the brush is doing, on what the paint, or in this case the pixels, are doing as you're putting them down. And you know, don't worry so much about the product or if it all comes together. You know, you already have the painting knowledge to create something that you know, that you really enjoy. It's just a matter of kind of getting out of the way and letting that happen. And if it's simpler for you, you know, use less color, or you know, kind of switch that up a little bit. Don't overcomplicate things too soon. You can even keep it grayscale for this whole painting process if you want, or this whole you know, underpainting, and then, you know, later on you can introduce color if you want, or if you don't want to, you don't have to, you know. This is really all about the practice and the process, and whatever you produce, you know, you just kind of allow it to be and accept it and move on. And just it's just fun, you know. This is a really cool thing that you can do, painting, you know, and everyone can do it. But if you're watching this, chances are you're very interested in painting, and maybe you have a lot of experience with it, or maybe just a little experience with it. You know, it doesn't really matter. Anyone can kind of just jump in and access this this wonderful potential, and especially with, you know, with digital painting. I mean, you know, there's really a lot of different ways you can approach this, and in a sense that's kind of like a benefit and sort of a something that can be kind of difficult about it too, is that you know, there are all these choices about, you know, what tools to use and what different brushes to use and all that. And that, you know, that's kind of why I've created this brush pack to sort of simplify things for people, and for, well, really just for myself. But I'm glad I can share it with other people now. You know, I really keep it to sort of a small set of tools, and I don't really overcomplicate things. As you can see, I've pretty much been using the same brush here, but it's a brush that I've spent a lot of time working on and refining and getting it to a point where it works well for me. So, and you know, as you're putting things down, the great thing about using a more textured brush, or sort of a more, you know, loose approach, even if you use something really large like this, like you go in and just sort of lose a bunch of edges around here, you know, that leaves room for the imagination to fill in the gaps. So, you know, if you really look in here, of course you don't have to literally zoom in, but if you look at the space and you just sort of think about what could potentially be there, what you can see, and then, you know, just start taking small variations of color and going in there and just starting to shape them. Look for existing changes that are already there, not things that you want to impose on it, but things that you can already see. Like, for example, there's like a little bit of redness here, and I almost feel like some of that could be catching the light, you know, and some, you know, little orange patches, or, you know, maybe just a little bit of sunlight coming in here, you know, and in these darker blue areas, this could be, you know, a bit of stone against that foliage down there, or maybe there's a new material here that we're not seeing in the landscape below, that's sort of picking up the impressions or the color palette from the sky above. And if, you know, as you're moving, just kind of keep an eye on this and sort of think about, or not even think about, just keep your mind open to these possibilities. Just sort of let things unfold and look for new things within the paint you've already put down, versus trying to come up with new ideas about what to paint, sort of independent of that. And remember to just keep checking in with yourself, and, you know, keep, you know, your mind on the task at hand here. Hopefully you don't have any phones or any other kind of stuff around you. That's always sort of disruptive to creativity in my experience. If you're working on your computer too, you know, think about if you have any other windows open, if there's anything that's going to pop up, you know, any chat things, you want to X out of those as well. You know, you don't want to have anything sort of coming up and interrupting your focus while you're working here. And, you know, the same applies to your physical environment. You want to, you know, sort of, if you live with other people, you know, maybe consider telling them that you're kind of going into your creative space or something like that, and you know, let them know that you just want to be left alone for a little bit, so they don't you know, come and ask you to do something in the middle of your painting process. And sometimes you'll see something that maybe wasn't your best idea, and you can just paint right over it. That's great. You know, anything, even it doesn't matter if you've put hours into something or if you've put minutes into it. You know, if it's something that you're not into, or you don't like, you don't want to include in your painting, you can just get rid of it. If it's a whole painting that you don't like, you can just delete it or throw it out or do whatever you want with it. But alright, well, obviously we can just kind of go nuts with all the details here, and can spend hours. I'll probably jump in and do quite a bit of detailing on the clouds here, but I'll just wrap it up for this video because we've made some nice progress today. I'm just going to shape up these levels a little bit, give ourselves a nice value range, and maybe we can sort of continue this in another part. We'll talk a little bit about the detailing process, sort of what goes into that for a painting, and how you can carry the same mindset into that next phase. But until then, I hope this has been helpful for you guys, and I wish you happy painting, and please feel free to leave a comment and let me know what kind of content you want to see on this channel. I'd be happy to create a new video by request, and of course don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Alright, until next time guys, take care.